December 22nd, 1944. Bastogne, Belgium, 11:30 hours. Private First Class Leo Palmer crouched in frozen foxhole south of town, temperature -20 Celsius, his hands so numb he could barely grip Browning automatic rifle. Ice crystals formed in nostrils with each breath. 48 hours in this position. No hot food, no adequate winter clothing, no hope of reinforcement. 4 German soldiers approached through snow carrying white flags. Senior officer was Major Wagner of 47th Panzer Corps. Junior officer, Lieutenant Helmuth Henke of Panzerlehr Operations Section. Carried briefcase under arm. Inside that briefcase was ultimatum promising total annihilation if Americans refused to surrender within 2 hours. Germans had every reason to expect success. 101st Airborne Division completely surrounded. 5 German divisions against 1 American division. Outnumbered 5-1. No tanks worth mentioning. Running out of ammunition, medical supplies, food. Weather had grounded all Allied aircraft for 6 days. No air support, no supply drops, no hope of immediate relief. What Germans did not know was that American commander in Bastogne was 46-year-old artillery officer named Anthony McAuliffe, who had never heard of word surrender. In next 17 minutes, McAuliffe would give one-word reply that would echo through military history. Inspire surrounded division to fight on. Confuse and demoralize German command. Help turn tide of Hitler's last desperate offensive in Western Europe. That word would be taught at every military academy. Repeated by soldiers for 79 years. Become symbol of American defiance. Germans demanded surrender. McAuliffe would say something they never expected. Something they could not understand. Something that would haunt them for rest of battle. Battle of Bulge had started 6 days earlier on December 16, when 200,000 German troops and 1,000 tanks smashed through American lines in Ardennes forest. Hitler's final gamble, massive surprise offensive designed to split Allied armies, recapture Port of Antwerp, force Western allies to negotiate separate peace. Hitler had scraped together his last reserves, pulled veteran divisions from Eastern Front, collected every operational tank and assault gun he could find. Boys of 16 and men of 50 pressed into service. This was Germany's last chance to avoid total defeat. German buildup had been masterful. Units moved only at night under radio silence. Horses pulled artillery to avoid engine noise. Wehrmacht concentrated 3 armies in Ardennes, opposite weakest part of American line. They achieved what military professionals call operational surprise. Attack achieved complete tactical surprise. American intelligence failed to detect German buildup. Ultra intercepts dried up because Germans maintained radio silence. Aerial reconnaissance hampered by bad weather. Ground patrols reported increased activity, but were dismissed as nervous imagination. Frontline units in Ardennes were either inexperienced divisions getting first taste of combat or exhausted divisions sent there to rest. 106th Infantry Division had been in line for 5 days. 28th Infantry Division was recuperating from Herdgen Forest bloodbath. They were not prepared for what hit them. German plan required speed. Capture key road junctions before Allies could react, before weather cleared and Allied aircraft returned to dominate battlefield. Bastogne was one of those key road junctions. 7 major roads converged on this small Belgian market town. Control Bastogne meant control movement through southern Ardennes. Without Bastogne, German offensive would bog down. With Bastogne, they could drive to Antwerp. General Dwight Eisenhower recognized danger immediately. On December 17th, he ordered 101st Airborne Division to move from rest area at Montmelon-le-Grand, near Reims, France to Bastogne. Division had been recovering from 3 months of combat in Holland during Operation Market Garden. Heavy casualties. Many men on leave in Paris. Division Commander Major General Maxwell Taylor was in Washington attending staff conference. Assistant Division Commander Brigadier General Gerald Higgins was in England. That left Brigadier General Anthony McAuliffe, Division Artillery Commander, in temporary command. McAuliffe was not supposed to be commanding Airborne Division in biggest battle of Western Front. He was artilleryman, 1918 West Point graduate, who had spent most of career around howitzers and fire direction centers. Born in Washington, D.C. on July 2, 1898, attended West Virginia University before entering West Point in 1917. His class underwent accelerated program due to World War I, graduating November 1918, just as that war ended. For 25 years, McAuliffe served in various artillery positions. Competent but unremarkable officer, slowly climbing ranks. World War II changed everything. He jumped into Normandy with 101st on D-Day. Broke his back during practice jump in May, but still went into combat June 6 when Brigadier General Don Pratt was killed during glider landings. McAuliffe was promoted to Assistant Division Commander. He proved himself under fire in Normandy and again in Holland during Operation Market Garden. Now, through circumstances beyond anyone's control, defense of Bastogne and perhaps outcome of entire German offensive rested on his shoulders. 101st started arriving in Bastogne late December 18 after brutal 107-mile truck ride through freezing rain and snow. Journey itself was nightmare. Men packed into open trucks, no room to sit, standing for hours in freezing darkness. Some trucks broke down and had to be abandoned. Others skidded off icy roads. Men jumped from moving vehicles to relieve themselves, then ran to catch up. They passed retreating American units heading opposite direction, defeated troops warning them to turn back, that Germans had Tigers, Panthers, entire divisions. Paratroopers ignored them and pressed on. They came without proper winter clothing. Division had been resting, refitting, expecting to spend Christmas in camp. Many men lacked overcoats, winter boots, or gloves. They wore summer uniforms with field jackets, jump boots that would freeze solid, thin gloves offering no protection against frostbite. Some wrapped feet in burlap sacks. Others stuffed newspapers inside jackets for insulation. They had been told this would be short deployment, few days at most. Stop Germans, hand over to relieving units, return to camp. No one expected to be surrounded. No one expected to be under siege. No one expected what was about to happen. By December 20th, German forces had cut all roads leading into Bastogne. 101st, along with elements of Combat Command B of 10th Armored Division, 705th Tank Destroyer Battalion, and various other units that retreated into town, were completely encircled. About 14,000 American troops trapped in town that before war had 8,000 inhabitants. Outside perimeter, 5 German divisions pressed in. 2nd Panzer Division, Panzer Lehr Division, 26th Volksgrenadier Division, elements of 2 other divisions. Germans had tanks, artillery, ammunition, supplies, and time. Americans had determination. First major loss that shook defenders came December 19, when Lieutenant Colonel Henry Cherry's task force was cut off and destroyed trying to hold village of Longville. Cherry escaped but lost most of his men and all his tanks. Weather was enemy as brutal as Germans. Temperature dropped to -20°C. Men in foxholes froze to death. Frostbite casualties exceeded combat casualties some days. Ammunition froze. Weapons jammed. Medical supplies ran out. Food was down to 1K ration per day. But morale held. Somehow, despite everything, morale held. Part of it was leadership. McAuliffe walked the lines daily, talked to soldiers in foxholes, asked about ammunition, food, their families, made notes, promised help was coming even when he did not know if help would come. Part of it was unit pride. These were paratroopers, elite troops, screaming eagles. They had jumped into Normandy, survived Holland. They would not break in Belgium. Part of it was simple refusal to accept defeat. Americans did not surrender, not when surrounded, not when outnumbered, not when freezing and starving. That was the spirit Germans did not understand when they sent their surrender demand. December 22nd, 11:30 hours. 4 German officers approached American lines under white flag. Captain Adams of F Company, 327th Glider Infantry Regiment met them. Germans were formal, polite, Senior officer, Major Wagner, spoke excellent English. He explained that they carried important message for American commander. Message that required immediate attention. Adams blindfolded the Germans as required by protocol, led them to battalion headquarters. From there they were escorted to regimental headquarters. Finally to division headquarters in Belgian barracks in center of Bastogne. McAuliffe was not there. He was asleep in his sleeping bag, catching few hours rest after 4 days with minimal sleep. His operations officer, Lieutenant Colonel Ned Moore, woke him. Germans sent surrender demand. McAuliffe got up, pulled on boots, walked to operations room still half asleep. Lieutenant Henke presented formal document, typed on Wehrmacht letterhead, signed by German commander, written in English. Document read: To the USA commander of the encircled town of Bastogne, the fortune of war is changing. This time, the USA forces in and near Bastogne have been encircled by strong German armored units. More German armored units have crossed the River Arthur near Orthuville, have taken march and reached St. Hubert by passing through Homper-Sibret-Tilley. Liebremont is in German hands. There is only one possibility to save the encircled USA troops from total annihilation. That is the honorable surrender of the encircled town. In order to think it over, a term of 2 hours will be granted beginning with the presentation of this note. If this proposal should be rejected, 1 German artillery corps and 6 heavy AA battalions are ready to annihilate the USA troops in and near Bastogne. The order for firing will be given immediately after this 2 hours term. All the serious civilian losses caused by this artillery fire would not correspond with the well-known American humanity. Signed, the German commander. McAuliffe read it once, read it again, looked at Moore. What does this say? Moore explained. Germans demanding surrender, threatening total annihilation if refused, 2-hour deadline. McAuliffe thought for a moment, then said single word. Nuts. He tossed paper aside, started to leave room, returned to his sleeping bag. Moore stopped him. What should we tell them? McAuliffe looked confused. Tell them what I said. Nuts. Staff officers looked at each other. Was General serious? Was this official response to formal surrender demand from German army? Colonel Harry Kinnard, Division Operations Officer, spoke up. Is that the official reply? McAuliffe nodded. Yes, nuts. Kinnard grabbed paper, sat at writer, typed. To the German commander. Nuts! The American commander. He showed it to McAuliffe. General approved. Paper was folded, placed in envelope, sealed. Now came problem. How to explain nuts to Germans who spoke English but might not understand American slang. Colonel Joseph Harper, commanding 327th Glider Infantry, was given task of delivering response. He walked with German officers back toward their lines, stopped at forward positions, removed their blindfolds, handed envelope to Lieutenant Henke. Henke opened envelope. Read single word. Looked confused. What does this mean? Harper thought for a moment. How to explain? He tried formal translation first. It means the same as go to hell. And I will tell you something else. If you continue to attack, we will kill every goddamn German that tries to break into this city. Henke's face went pale. He understood now. This was not negotiation. This was defiance. Harper pointed back toward German lines. Now go back and tell that to your commander. German officers walked away through snow. Henke kept looking back at American positions, trying to understand. How could surrounded, outnumbered, freezing soldiers refuse surrender with joke? What kind of army was this? News of McAuliffe's response spread through American lines within hours. Soldiers repeated it to each other, laughed, felt their spirits lift. Germans demanded surrender. General said nuts. It was perfect. It was American. It was exactly what they needed to hear. Private Palmer in his frozen foxhole heard the story from his sergeant. Palmer was so cold he could not feel his feet, so hungry his stomach hurt, so exhausted he could barely keep eyes open. But he smiled when he heard nuts. Because it meant they were not giving up. It meant their general believed they could hold. It meant this frozen hell had purpose. Other soldiers felt same way. In foxholes around perimeter, men who had been close to breaking found new resolve. If General could tell Germans to go to hell, they could hold their positions one more day, one more hour, one more minute. Morale is an intangible thing, cannot be measured, cannot be quantified, but every military commander knows it is difference between victory and defeat. McAuliffe's nuts gave 101st Airborne something precious. It gave them pride. It gave them identity. It gave them reason to keep fighting when logic said quit. Germans did not understand this. They could not comprehend how a single word could transform morale of surrounded division. German commanders received response with confusion and anger. Was this joke? Was this insult? What kind of military response was nuts? They consulted dictionaries, asked officers who had studied English, finally understood it was slang, American colloquialism, meaning rejection, refusal, defiance. German commander, Lieutenant General Heinrich von Luttwitz of 47th Panzer Corps, was furious. He expected serious military response, negotiation about surrender terms, discussion of treatment of prisoners. Instead, he got nuts. It demoralized his troops. German soldiers heard about response. They could not understand enemy who would joke when surrounded. It suggested Americans knew something Germans did not, made them hesitant, uncertain. In war, uncertainty is fatal. Von Luttwitz ordered the attack to proceed as planned. If Americans would not surrender, they would be destroyed. But attack failed. Again and again, Germans threw troops and tanks at Bastogne perimeter. Again and again, Americans held. Part of it was tactical. Americans had interior lines, could shift forces to threaten sectors faster than Germans could mass for attack. Part of it was equipment. American artillery, though running low on shells, was expertly handled. Part of it was terrain. Bastogne sat on high ground. Germans had to attack uphill through snow. But part of it was that single word, nuts. It told soldiers they were expected to hold. It told them their general believed in them. It told them surrender was not option. And they held. December 23rd, weather broke. Clear skies. Allied aircraft appeared like angels. C-47 transports dropped supplies. P-47 fighters strafed German positions. Bombers hit German assembly areas. In single day, 241 aircraft dropped 144 tons of supplies. Not everything fell inside perimeter. Some landed in German positions. But enough got through. Ammunition, medical supplies, food. Ammunition, medical supplies, food. Morale soared even higher. December 24th, Christmas Eve, Germans launched their strongest attack. Panzer Lehr Division hit from northwest with tanks and infantry. Attack penetrated American lines. German tanks reached edge of town. For several hours, outcome was in doubt. Fighting was hand-to-hand in some areas. Germans nearly broke through. But Americans held, barely, by smallest margin, but they held. December 26th, at 1650 hours, leading elements of 4th Armored Division broke through German lines from south. Relief column reached Bastogne. Siege was broken. Germans had failed to capture town, failed to break through to Antwerp, failed to split Allied armies. Within weeks, German offensive collapsed. Within months, war in Europe ended. Bastogne became legend. 101st Airborne became immortal. McAuliffe became hero. But it was that single word that everyone remembered. Nuts. Cost of holding Bastogne was brutal. 101st Airborne Division casualties from December 19, 1944 to January 6, 1945. 341 killed, 1691 wounded, 516 missing. Other units defending Bastogne suffered proportionally. Private Leo Palmer survived. Lost 3 toes to frostbite. Carried shrapnel in left shoulder rest of his life. He was 21 years old when siege ended. Looked 40. War does that. He returned to Indiana after war. Married. Had 4 children. Worked as mechanic for 42 years. Never talked much about Bastogne except to say he was there when generals said nuts. At his funeral in 1998, his son read his father's war diary. Entry for December 22, 1944 read, "Germans want us to surrender. General told them nuts. We laughed. We knew we would hold." Sergeant William Davis of E Company, 506th Parachute Infantry, lost left leg below knee when German shell hit his foxhole December 24. He was evacuated to England, then United States, medically discharged 1945. Davis said in an interview years later, "Nuts saved my life, not literally, but it gave me reason to keep fighting when I wanted to give up. When you're surrounded and freezing and starving, you need something to hold on to. Nuts was that something." Not everyone survived with body intact. Not everyone survived with mind intact. Frostbite crippled hundreds. Combat fatigue, what today we call PTSD, affected thousands. But they held. Against impossible odds, they held. And they held because their commander gave them a single word that expressed everything they felt: defiance, determination, refusal to quit. Mathematics of lives saved is impossible to calculate. If Bastogne had fallen, German offensive might have reached Meuse River, might have captured Allied supply dumps, might have prolonged war. How many lives would that have cost? 10,000? 100,000? More? Nobody knows, but McAuliffe's nuts probably saved more lives than statistics can measure. German perspective reveals full impact. General Major Heinz Kokott, who commanded 26th Volksgrenadier Division at Bastogne, admitted in post-war interview that American response baffled and demoralized his troops. "We could not understand enemy who would joke when surrounded. It suggested they knew something we did not. It made us hesitant, uncertain. In war, uncertainty is fatal." That testimony reveals truth. Single word changed psychological balance of battle, made Germans doubt, made Americans believe. That was McAuliffe's genius, not tactical brilliance, not strategic vision. Just understanding that in that moment with those soldiers, in that situation, nuts was perfect response. It came from gut, not from manual. It expressed what every American soldier felt but could not articulate. It turned desperate situation into shared joke. And in that joke, soldiers found strength. Today, 79 years later, nuts remains most famous military response in American history. Every military academy teaches Bastogne, not just tactics, not just logistics, but leadership. How McAuliffe managed morale when everything else was failing. They teach that single word did not win battle, but it helped ensure battle would be won. It reminded soldiers what they were fighting for, reminded them who they were. United States Army Airborne School at Fort Benning, Georgia has McAuliffe statue. Inscription reads, "Nuts, December 22, 1944, Bastogne, Belgium." Every paratrooper who graduates airborne school learns that story, learns that when surrounded, when outnumbered, when everything says quit, American paratroopers say nuts. 101st Airborne Division, now Air Assault rather than Parachute Infantry, still carries that legacy. Division patch shows Screaming Eagle. Division motto is Rendezvous with Destiny. But every soldier in division knows real motto is nuts. In Iraq, when 101st positions were surrounded during heavy fighting in 2004, radio operators would sign off transmissions with nuts. Out. Connection across 60 years to that December day in Belgium. In Afghanistan, when Firebase in Kunar province was under siege for 3 days in 2009, commander sent message to higher headquarters. "We're fine. Situation is nuts." Everyone knew what he meant. Everyone knew the reference. That is legacy of single word. It transcends time, place, circumstance. It expresses something fundamental about American military spirit: refusal to surrender when surrounded, defiance in face of overwhelming odds, ability to joke when facing death. Belgian citizens never forgot. Every December, ceremonies honor American defenders. School children learn about Sieg, about Mots, about nuts. Bastogne Museum opens 2014 for 70th anniversary. Uses modern technology to recreate siege. Visitors experience cold, hear artillery, feel desperation. But climactic moment is always same. German surrender demand and McAuliffe's response. Visitors from around world, speaking dozens of languages, all understand that moment. It transcends language, culture, time. It speaks to something fundamental in human spirit: refusal to surrender when surrender seems logical. McAuliffe never sought fame. He continued serving after war. Commanded 103rd Infantry Division in occupation of Austria. Later served as Army Deputy Chief of Staff for Personnel. Retired 1956 as full general. He gave hundreds of speeches over years. Always asked about nuts. Always gave same answer. It just came out. It was what I felt. It was what the men needed to hear. He died August 11, 1975, age 77, buried at Arlington National Cemetery. His grave marker includes dates of service, ranks held, campaigns fought. Does not mention nuts, does not need to. Everyone who visits his grave knows why they are there. Modern military communication emphasizes clarity, precision, avoiding ambiguity. McAuliffe's nuts violated every principle of clear communication. It was slang. It was unclear to Germans. It required explanation. But it was perfect. Because military communication is not just about transmitting information. It is about transmitting meaning, emotion, intent. Nuts transmitted all three instantly to American soldiers. They understood immediately. They needed no explanation. They got message loud and clear. We are not surrendering. We are not giving up. We will fight until relieved or die trying. That message was worth more than any formal military response could have been. Historians debate whether McAuliffe truly said nuts spontaneously or whether story has been embellished over decades. Some claim he said something else, something more profane, and staff officers sanitized it for official record. Does not matter. What matters is what went into that message to Germans. What matters is how soldiers received it. What matters is that 79 years later, we still remember. Modern conflicts require different responses. Terrorism, cyber warfare, hybrid threats do not present neat surrender demands, but principle remains. When enemy expects you to quit, when logic says surrender, when everyone thinks you are finished, that is when defiance matters most. That is what nuts teaches, not tactics, not logistics, not strategy, but spirit, will, refusal to accept defeat. In 4 letters, McAuliffe captured essence of American warrior spirit. In 1 word, he defined defiance for all time. Germans demanded surrender. McAuliffe said nuts. Americans held. Germans failed. War was won. All because one general at one moment found exactly right word to express American defiance. Not through careful deliberation, not through strategic calculation, but through simple human instinct that recognized surrender was not option. History was made not in grand battles with thousands of casualties, not in strategic decisions affecting millions, but in basement in small Belgian town where artillery officer told enemy to go to hell with single word. That is power of leadership. That is impact of morale. That is why 79 years later, in world that has forgotten so much, we still remember general who said nuts to enemy that demanded surrender. Because in that word, in that moment, in that choice, we see best of what we can be when faced with worst of what we must endure.